I believe Yo Gotti may have told Pooh Shiesty, I got a nice deal on the table if you can get free.
Yo Gotti just revealed he was in the process of buying Pooh Shiesty out of Gucci Mane's contract. A massive offer was reportedly on the table. A contract dispute sat at the center of everything. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, things allegedly escalated in a way that ended with federal charges and a story that is still shaking the industry. Between the money and the contract, two rap empires collided and nothing was ever the same. What was supposed to be a clean business move allegedly became one of the most dramatic betrayals the industry has seen in years. Stay with us because this one goes deeper than anybody expected. Yo, what's good, fam? Today we are breaking down how a reported label deal between Pooh Shiesty and Yo Gotti allegedly set off a chain of events that ended with federal charges and two rap empires at war. Let's get into it. Before we get into the full breakdown, let's talk about who Pooh Shiesty is and how he got to the point where a major rival label was reportedly ready to spend serious money to sign him. Born Lontrell Williams Jr., Pooh Shiesty came out of Memphis, one of the most culturally potent cities in the history of American hip-hop. He dropped his debut single Hell Night independently in 2019 and immediately started generating attention locally and across the South. His sound was raw, his delivery was aggressive, and the Memphis DNA was unmistakable. By 2020, he had caught the attention of somebody who knew exactly what Memphis talent looked like when it was worth investing in. That somebody was Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane sent Pooh Shiesty a direct message in 2020, and that DM changed the trajectory of his career. Pooh Shiesty has spoken openly about how significant that moment felt. He signed with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records in April of 2020 in a deal distributed through Atlantic Records. The label celebrated the announcement by releasing a collaborative single called Still Together, which was exactly the kind of symbolic gesture that signaled Gucci Mane was serious about investing in his newest artist. What came next was rapid. Pooh Shiesty vaulted into the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100 with Back in Blood, which peaked at number 13. He was named an XXL freshman. His debut commercial mixtape Shiesty Season dropped in February of 2021, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, and instantly confirmed that this was not a temporary wave. This was a legitimate superstar in the making. He had the streaming numbers, the cultural credibility, the collaborations, and the street cosign. By any measure of the music business, Pooh Shiesty had become one of the most valuable young artists connected to Memphis rap. And that value did not go unnoticed by other labels watching from the outside. Now here's where the business side of the story gets complicated. According to federal allegations and the reporting that followed, Pooh Shiesty was not satisfied with the financial structure of his arrangement with 1017 Records. The areas of reported frustration centered on royalties, master recordings, and control over his own music. Those are not minor details. They are the foundation of an artist's long-term financial life. Royalties determine how much flows back every time music is played or licensed. Masters determine who owns the original recordings and who controls what happens to them for decades. Release approval determines whether an artist can negotiate their own future freely or whether they remain dependent on their label. When an artist becomes frustrated with those specific elements, it is rarely about ego. It is typically about the gap between how much money they are generating and how little of it they are actually seeing. Based on the federal allegations that would eventually emerge, Pooh Shiesty allegedly reached a point where staying at 1017 on existing terms felt untenable. And that is the moment when Yo Gotti's reported interest entered the picture. To understand why Yo Gotti being the potential destination matters so much, you have to understand what he has built. Mario Mims, known professionally as Yo Gotti, is one of the most significant figures in the entire history of Memphis hip-hop. He turned his label Collective Music Group, known as CMG, into one of the most important independent rap operations in the country, housing names like Moneybagg Yo, ESTG, and Glorilla. Yo Gotti built that operation from the streets of Memphis using the same hunger and business acumen that made him the type of boss who could reportedly put together a major acquisition offer. When reports emerged that he was interested in Pooh Shiesty and had allegedly been prepared to offer a contract in the range of $10 to $15 million, the rap world understood the weight immediately. That reported figure was not just a number. It was a statement about Pooh Shiesty's value, and the fact that the player making the move was Yo Gotti made it exponentially more loaded, because Yo Gotti and Gucci Mane are are former associates whose relationship collapsed years ago and has carried sustained tension ever since. What made it even more provocative is that Gucci Mane was incarcerated during this period, meaning Yo Gotti was allegedly making his move on one of 1017's biggest artists while the label boss was locked up and unable to respond in real time. Gucci Mane and Yo Gotti came up in the early 2000s when Southern rap was rewriting the entire landscape of the music industry. Both were building names on the strength of street credibility and raw musical output, and they were associates connected through shared spaces in the culture. But the relationship deteriorated. A significant flashpoint occurred in 2010 outside a nightclub during Thanksgiving weekend, when a shooting incident reportedly emerged from a verbal altercation between the two camps. From that point forward, whatever was once cordial hardened into something much colder. By 2012, there were conflicting project release dates, public subliminal shots, and the kind of sustained mutual hostility that builds between two powerful figures who once occupied the same space and now operate in direct opposition. So when the story emerged that Yo Gotti was allegedly trying to acquire one of Gucci Mane's most valuable artists, the history between them made every element heavier. According to the reports and the federal allegations that followed, the plan as originally conceived was supposed to be clean and legitimate. Yo Gotti allegedly advanced money intended to facilitate a proper buyout of Pooh Shiesty's existing 1017 contract. The idea was straightforward on paper. Negotiate with Gucci Mane, determine what it would cost to legally terminate or restructure the agreement between Pooh Shiesty and 1017 Records, deliver the appropriate payment or arrangement, and bring Pooh Shiesty into CMG on new terms. Artist buyouts happen in the music business. When one label wants an artist who is signed elsewhere, the standard route involves lawyers, negotiations, and financial settlements that satisfy all parties. There was nothing unusual about the concept. The complication arose not from the plan itself, but from what allegedly happened before the plan could be completed. Based on the reporting surrounding the federal case, Pooh Shiesty allegedly began spending money from the advance before the buyout of his 1017 contract was finalized. The alleged spending reportedly included luxury vehicles, mansions, and jewelry. This is where the situation gets important from a financial standpoint, because an advance is not a gift. An advance can be tied to specific obligations, recruitment requirements, or business conditions that must be met before the funds are truly free to use. When Gucci Mane flat out refused to let Pooh Shiesty out of the contract to join his direct rival, Pooh Shiesty was allegedly already deep in the advance money with nowhere to turn. The buyout funds were gone. The legal exit was blocked, and that panic, according to the narrative that emerged, is what allegedly pushed him toward a far more dangerous solution. This is where Gucci Mane's role becomes critical. According to the narrative that emerged through federal allegations and reporting, Gucci Mane allegedly refused to voluntarily release Pooh Shiesty from the 1017 deal. From a pure business perspective, that refusal was entirely logical. A release from a recording contract carries real financial consequences. It means surrendering future royalties, control over masters, distribution rights, Atlantic Records approval power, and all the commercial upside tied to an artist who had already proven he could chart at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. Asking Gucci Mane to hand that over to a longtime rival without proper compensation would be like asking any business owner to forfeit their most valuable asset to a competitor. The alleged refusal was not stubbornness, it was a legally defensible business position Gucci Mane had every right to take. That refusal, according to prosecutors, is what pushed the situation toward catastrophe. Federal prosecutors allege that on January 10, 2026, Pooh Shiesty and several associates arranged a meeting with Gucci Mane at a recording studio in Dallas, Texas. The meeting was allegedly presented as a negotiation about the contract status, but according to the federal complaint and the statements from U.S. Attorney Ryan Raybould for the Northern District of Texas, what happened inside that studio was not a negotiation. It was an alleged armed takeover of the space. Before the Dallas meeting allegedly took place, federal prosecutors alleged that Pooh Shiesty made a stop at a Staples store to print out paperwork. That paperwork, according to what prosecutors have publicly disclosed, was a contract termination document. The alleged terms of that document included immediate termination of Pooh Shiesty's deal with 1017 Records, release from all obligations under the agreement, and transfer of ownership of his masters and intellectual property to himself. The paperwork also allegedly attempted to shift 1017's approval rights with Atlantic Records directly to Pooh Shiesty at his sole discretion. That last point is significant because it would have given him the freedom to negotiate directly with any label, including CMG, without needing Gucci Mane's approval for anything. The document did not go through a lawyer's office. It was not the product of a formal negotiation. It was allegedly printed at a retail office supply store hours before a meeting that would end with federal charges. At the Dallas studio, federal prosecutors alleged that Pooh Shiesty produced an AK-style pistol and used it to force one of the victims present to sign the release from the recording contract. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, an associate allegedly blocked the door with a rifle while other co-defendants displayed additional firearms. One victim was reportedly choked to near unconsciousness. The focus of the alleged confrontation was making Gucci Mane sign the termination paperwork under threat. This was no longer a business negotiation. According to the charges, it had allegedly become a federal kidnapping and robbery. Prosecutors further alleged that Pooh Shiesty and his associates took approximately $450,000 in jewelry and personal property from Gucci Mane and others present, including a wedding ring, a luxury watch, and diamond earrings. Federal prosecutors also alleged that Pooh Shiesty directed Gucci Mane to look into a cell phone camera and state that Pooh Shiesty was dropped from 1017 Records. Prosecutors say Big 30 was allegedly recording the video. That recorded statement became significant to investigators because it created a direct documented record of the alleged forced label release. Rather than a signed contract between willing parties, the alleged outcome was a video captured under duress, which would carry no legal weight in any court of law. Here is the legal reality that matters most. A contract signed by someone being threatened at gunpoint is not a valid contract. The concept of duress is well established in law. When someone is forced to sign a document under threat of violence, that signature is void. It cannot be enforced, it cannot terminate obligations, and it cannot transfer rights. Whatever Gucci Mane allegedly signed in that Dallas studio was legally worthless from the moment it was produced. The entire alleged goal of achieving a clean exit from 1017 was defeated because a coerced document cannot accomplish what a legitimate negotiation could have. The federal case moved quickly. Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, and 6 other individuals were arrested in connection with the alleged January 10th incident on charges that included kidnapping and robbery. Federal prosecutors moved to keep Pooh Shiesty detained before trial, with court filings introducing surveillance photos and screenshots from the alleged video recording. A maximum sentence of life in prison was on the table if convicted on the most serious charges. This was not a minor legal complication. This was a federal prosecution in the Northern District of Texas, carrying the full weight of the Department of Justice. Yo Gotti's alleged role requires careful handling because the distinction here is crucial. According to the reporting, Yo Gotti was reportedly attempting to arrange a legitimate buyout before the alleged confrontation occurred. Yo Gotti has not been publicly charged in connection with the January 10th incident. The federal case centered on Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, and the other individuals allegedly present at the Dallas studio. There is no established public evidence that Yo Gotti had advanced knowledge of or authorized the alleged armed confrontation. According to reporting, Pooh Shiesty allegedly brought the forcibly signed papers and the cell phone video back to Yo Gotti as proof that he was a free agent and ready to sign with CMG. But what Pooh Shiesty allegedly did not account for was what Gucci Mane would do next. Rather than stay quiet, Gucci Mane reportedly took the evidence directly to federal authorities, triggering the investigation that would ultimately result in the arrest. A business negotiation and an alleged armed robbery are two entirely different events, and Gucci Mane made sure the federal government understood exactly what had allegedly happened. But here is the irony. If Yo Gotti was genuinely working toward a legal buyout, then Pooh Shiesty allegedly choosing a violent shortcut would have destroyed the very deal he was trying to reach. The moment a federal criminal case became attached to Pooh Shiesty's name, the landscape of any potential CMG signing changed dramatically. An artist facing kidnapping and robbery charges with a possible life sentence is a different business proposition than a free agent with a clean record. The legitimate road allegedly existed. The reported buyout plan allegedly existed. According to the federal narrative, Pooh Shiesty allegedly abandoned both in favor of a confrontation that created far more problems than it solved. Gucci Mane's response came through music. The track Crash Dummy was widely understood as a direct reference to the alleged betrayal, comparing Pooh Shiesty's alleged tactics to those attributed to Death Row Records founder Suge Knight in the 1990s. The song was Gucci Mane reframing the narrative, publicly declaring that the alleged forced signing carried no legal weight and that he was not the victim who would stay quiet. He used music to make clear that the alleged confrontation had not changed the contractual reality. The 1017 Records website continued listing Pooh Shiesty as a contracted artist after the arrest. No formal release announcement was made by either side. The alleged forced termination document was legally meaningless, and Gucci Mane's public position was that nothing had changed. The reported $10 to $15 million figure deserves proper financial context. A number in that range sounds enormous to the average listener, but buying an artist out of a label contract involves far more than writing a check. A buyout can include outstanding advance recoupment balances owed to the existing label, a payment compensating the label for surrendering its future royalty stream, a separate negotiation around master recordings, and the unwinding of distribution rights, sync licensing, and Atlantic Records approvals. A $15 million offer from CMG would not necessarily mean $15 million flowing directly into Pooh Shiesty's pocket. A significant portion would likely have needed to go toward resolving obligations with 1017 and Atlantic first. The net amount landing personally in Pooh Shiesty's accounts would depend entirely on the specific terms of the original contract and whatever recoupment balance had accumulated over the years. The master ownership question sits at the center of all of this. When an artist controls their masters, they control the most durable form of musical wealth in existence. Masters generate revenue through streaming, licensing for film and television, commercial placements, sample clearances, and future reissues. For an artist like Pooh Shiesty, whose music had already charted in the top 5 of the Billboard 200 and produced the top 20 Hot 100 single, the long-term value of those recordings was not trivial. It represented decades of potential earning power. The reported frustration over master ownership helps explain why this was never simply an ego conflict. It was about the fundamental economics of a recording career. Major label and joint venture arrangements often give artists a royalty percentage, while the label retains the masters, meaning an artist can have a massive commercial impact and still receive a relatively small share after recoupment and contractual deductions. That gap between gross impact and personal financial reality is what drives artists toward ownership conversations in the first place. The CMG signing was never publicly confirmed as a completed deal. Reports circulated on social media, but Yo Gotti's label made no formal announcement. The distinction between reported interest, a reported financial offer, and a finalized signed contract is critical. The story here concerns an alleged attempted buyout and the reported negotiations surrounding it, not a completed label transfer. After the federal case began, 1017 Records still listed Pooh Shiesty as a contracted artist. The label had not released him, which means that for all the drama surrounding the reported CMG deal, Pooh Shiesty remained attached to the same label arrangement he allegedly wanted to escape. The situation took another ironic turn when music tied to Pooh Shiesty continued moving through the 1017 and Atlantic structure while he remained in federal custody. His music was still being commercially released through the same label he allegedly tried to leave by force. That became a significant point of online speculation, with many observers noting that the alleged forced termination document had not changed the commercial reality of his distribution at all. It underscored something fundamental about recording contracts. A label's hold over an artist's catalog does not dissolve because the artist wants it to. It dissolves when both parties agree to terms, when a court orders it, or when the contract expires by its own provisions. The broader impact on Pooh Shiesty's career is difficult to assess because so much depends on how the federal case resolves. A young artist who had charted in the top 3 of the Billboard 200 and the top 20 of the Hot 100 was now dealing with federal kidnapping and robbery charges, and a complete collapse of his relationship with his label boss. Whatever the trial outcome, it represented a dramatic interruption of what had been a promising career arc. So let's ask the central question directly. Was Yo Gotti really trying to take Gucci Mane's artist? The answer is more layered than a simple yes. The reported negotiations suggest Yo Gotti was pursuing Pooh Shiesty through legitimate channels, a financial offer and an alleged advance intended to facilitate a proper buyout. That is normal label competition, not a covert raid. The conflict arose because Gucci Mane reportedly refused to release his artists under those terms, which was his legal right. Where the situation crossed from routine business into something far more serious was when the alleged legitimate negotiations broke down and the events of January 10th, 2026 allegedly occurred. A disagreement that could have been resolved through attorneys instead allegedly ended with a federal rivalry charge and an armed confrontation that undermined everything the intended business transition was supposed to achieve. Now let's put the full arc in order. Pooh Shiesty emerged from Memphis in 2019 and signed with Gucci Mane's 1017 in April of 2020. He charted in the top 20 of the Hot 100, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, and built real commercial weight. Dissatisfaction with his royalty structure and master ownership allegedly developed over time. Yo Gotti and CMG reportedly expressed interest and allegedly advanced money toward a legitimate buyout. Pooh Shiesty allegedly spent heavily from those funds on luxury goods before the buyout was completed. Gucci Mane allegedly refused to release him. The legitimate negotiations stalled. On January 10, 2026, Pooh Shiesty allegedly stopped at a Staples store to print termination paperwork, then traveled with associates to a Dallas recording studio where Gucci Mane was present. Federal prosecutors alleged Pooh Shiesty produced an AK-style pistol and forced the signing of that document at gunpoint, while victims were allegedly robbed of approximately $450,000 in jewelry and personal property. And a cell phone video was allegedly recorded of Gucci Mane stating Pooh Shiesty was dropped from 1017. Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, and 6 other defendants were arrested in April of 2026. Gucci Mane responded with Crash Dummy. The alleged forged document was legally invalid due to duress. No completed CMG signing was ever publicly confirmed. Pooh Shiesty remained in federal custody, and his music continued moving through the 1017 and Atlantic structure. Returning to the core of the story, Yo Gotti revealing that he was attempting to buy Pooh Shiesty out of Gucci Mane's contract was explosive not simply because of the money, but because of everything it represented. Pooh Shiesty was not trying to make a routine label move. He was allegedly trying to leave one of the most historically significant labels in Atlanta-connected trap music for one of the most powerful independent rap operations in Memphis. And the man waiting on the other side of that deal happened to be his current label boss's longtime rival. Those ingredients alone would have defined the music business conversation for the year. The fact that the entire situation allegedly collapsed into a federal kidnapping case made it something far larger. The irony is almost impossible to overstate. The deal designed to give Pooh Shiesty more control over his music and a fresh financial start became the origin point of the most serious legal crisis of his career. The legitimate path reportedly existed. Yo Gotti reportedly had the resources and the interest to make a proper buyout happen. But the alleged decision to take a violent shortcut instead of seeing those negotiations through allegedly cost Pooh Shiesty not just the CMG deal, but his freedom and potentially decades of his life. The biggest unanswered questions are not simply about which label Pooh Shiesty ultimately signs with. The real questions are whether a legitimate buyout was genuinely underway, how much of the reported offer was actually advanced, and under what conditions, what Yo Gotti knew before the confrontation happened, and what the long-term trajectory of Pooh Shiesty's career looks like on the other side of a federal case of this magnitude. None of those questions have clean public answers yet. What this story teaches is something the music business has illustrated repeatedly. Getting into a recording contract is rarely the hardest part of an artist's career. Getting out of one can be exponentially more difficult, especially when the label has a legitimate financial interest in keeping the artist. Pooh Shiesty reportedly wanted a new label. Yo Gotti reportedly saw a major opportunity. Gucci Mane allegedly refused to let his most valuable artist walk to his longtime rival. And the collision of all three allegedly produced one of the most consequential music business stories in recent memory. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think there was any other way this could have played out? If you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. And tap the video on screen for more content like this.